December of last year. So it's just, we'll say, thrown, we'll say, I suppose, another casting another light, we'll say, on that report that says, that Ireland is one of the fairest income tax systems in the world. It certainly is not.
Did you look at that, Logan?
I saw, the only thing I look at tax, I deal with a lot of US clients, and their tax code in US.
Can I ask you a question just first? What are macrolytics? Trend macrolytics.
It's one of these fantastic made-up US words that makes sense in a context that doesn't ever exist in real life. So it's just a way of...
That's clear then.
Yes.
Big analytics.
Yes, big analytics, exactly, yes. It's not I don't even think I'm not sure what the word means. I just write it down as I'm told to do. So
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to go
That's all right. Okay. I think it's dealing with US clients is that the tax code in US is so incredibly complex, and it is an industry it's a huge industry in the US. It turns up in April every year. And I think what happens in the US is that because there's so much vested interest in having a complex tax code, because we've tax lawyers and accountants that never make lots of money out of it, in Ireland the tax code is, for all its faults, at least is relatively simple. That if you're an on PAY, you may not like how much tax you're paying and how much fees you're paying, but at least it's fairly clear how much everyone pays. It's very hard to get around the system as a PAY tax payer, most people are. When you're self-employed, you have more flexibility, I suppose. But even in that point, the flexibility isn't hugely insane. And on the tax thing, I think what we saw last week in the US, where they were, the US politicians were dragging Apple through the coals over the corporate tax rules.
Yeah.
And Cook, the chairman of Apple, made a very valid point. He said, you wrote the book. These are not our rules that we're working. These are your rules to the government. And you wrote these rules, and now you're giving out to us for using these rules. So, where does the fault lie with where the tax system is in the US?
Yeah, well, it is a fair point, but the Americans won't accept it. Because I saw that our ambassador, Michael Collins, was also writing to them to say, you wrote the book. These are your rules. Don't be blaming Ireland.
Yeah, but it's internal US politics, and you have to have someone to blame. And it's good if you've got a big corporate that can't go anywhere, or pretty much moves offshore. You can drag them in and make a political point, and that's what much of it is about.
Yeah, that's a fair point, Aileen.
Well, actually, just kind of coming out of that, I think there's a piece actually on the front page of the Sunday Business Post, which is stating that ministers are going to have to choose between spending on welfare or a stimulus package when they face their budget decisions. And again, that brings a huge societal friction. And is the spending, are people to be hit with more tax cuts, those who feel that they're already paying for everything, or is there more money to be spent in welfare by people who feel that there are people unfairly maybe on welfare? And coming out of that, there's a piece in, I know Michael was saying it's his favourite newspaper earlier, the Irish Mail on Sunday, where they're saying that there's going to be dole cut changes which are going to shock Labour backbenchers. Now again, that would feed into the whole Millward Brown poll thing. But I think these dole cuts are that it's a measure intended to, it's for those who are clearly don't look like they want to engage in any sort of work or training, but it looks like they're actually going to get serious about this, and they will have their dole taken off them for 9 weeks if they refuse to engage in any sort of training or any sort of job offers or training opportunities. So I think that's a serious sanction to be placed on people. A good sanction, I think, because it may be actually you just need shock tactics at this stage to force people into the workplace or to force people
if
into...
they can't. You see, this is true, but I know people that are unemployed and they can't find a job. They really want a job.
This is actually saying that these are people who've been offered up to 3 or 4 times positions in training schemes or back to work schemes or whatever else. So, if they continuously refuse to either put themselves forward even for the interview, then it's showing that they have a serious disengagement with the whole workplace in the first place.
Well, Retta, you might correct me on this because you're good on figures. 1 in 7 of people who receive social welfare benefit, like what we used to call unemployment benefit, have never ever had a job. Even during the Tiger years. That really came as a terrible shock to me. Listen, before I go to my break, there's one question I want to ask you, Lorcan, because there's a story in the paper today, I can't remember which one of you picked it out, about the Ritz-Carlton out in Enniskerry. And I don't know, they spent gazillions doing it up,
Yeah.
and allegedly have now sold it for $1 million.
That's
Oh,
right.
it was you
It was,
who did
it
that,
was
yeah.
actually, yeah. According to the Sunday Independent, the Ritz has now sold for €1 million, and the 80 million euros worth of debt that came attached to that have been wiped out, which is staggering
Moral
when you think
hazard
about it.
again.
Moral
Here we
hazard,
go.
there you go. If
Yeah.
you've got all the money in the world, moral hazard doesn't apply.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is a real reflection of our times that, you know, it was built by Treasury Holdings, Johnny Ronan, who was the poster boy of the Celtic Tiger and all that stuff. It's now, it's being sold for €1 million. It's going to be relaunched in the autumn under a different name. The Ritz-Carlton name is going to go according to the newspaper report. But it's mad to think that the hotel now costs the same price as a 2 up, 2 down cost in Ranelagh at the height of the boom.
That's right.
Which is just,
if you were lucky.
if you were lucky, you could get it. Yeah, so it just shows how far that particular market has fallen in the last 4 or 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, mind you, I do see in another section that the new owners or buyers or whatever said that it wasn't $1 million, but
Yeah,
didn't
but
say
also,
that it was.
what's interesting with hotels, it never really took off. The occupancy was always around 40-45%, when everywhere else in Dublin and its environs was around 60-65%. So it was never a success.
Well, I was going to ask you, Logan, because you're dealing with the Americans, are they coming over looking for little bargains like that? I'll pick up an old hotel,
Yes.
grand hotel for.
And it's in the last 2 months, 3 months, I'm starting to say that I get phone calls. Look, can you live in Ireland? We want to kind of like, where can we get into this market? And there's a few people that I have in Ireland that I did send and talk to these people. These people know what they're doing. But it's the way the market is working here, don't seem to work. Is it's very, they want to get into the Dublin city centre market because that's the only place that's moving. There's 2 articles actually in the paper. We've got time that we very quick cover this. There's Anya Coffey has a piece in the Sunday Business or the Sunday Times, and just talking about like, is the property market back from the dead? We're starting to see some movement happening in the property market, and the prices are picking up. And you'll see this even that if you're looking to buy a house in Dublin, you can't go in and bid 25% under the asking anymore. They'll take the asking because the house is on the market. But that is still a supply issue, and there's a quote there from David Duffy, the RSRI. He says, if prices are rising because of supply constraint, what's causing that constraint is where you would look first. And I think what we're going to see in the next 6 to 12 months is this new personal insolvency legislation does start to take effect, and banks start to take over homes again. Because one thing we have not seen in 5 years of property crash is repossessions. I know.
Yeah, well, they're presumably they're going to start in the buy-to-let. There would be a great reluctance, I presume, still to go after people's homes.
I think if they start to the buy-to-let, they won't get a great return because a lot of the buy-to-let are in the places that nobody wants to live. So that's in the.
Well, down around the docks and you know, all those new developments are very attractive.
They are very, but how much of that stuff is actually in trouble with the buy-to-let market? It's that stuff out in 20 for 30 miles outside of the M50. That's where the trouble is. And the reason they're in trouble is because nobody wants to live there, and the population base that had there doesn't exist anymore. So the stuff that is worth noting now will still be worth noting in 10 years' time.
Yeah, I think I saw something in the property supplement of either I think it was the Irish Times, of a group of apartments together being sold at what sound like a
but that's
retail
exactly
hotel.
anything that the overseas investor wants. They want what they call family units, and they want 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 family units together. And the other thing that's, I think, that's what they're looking for, and they're available, but the prices of those in the last 2 years have really moved on in Dublin, especially in what's called Google Town, which is kind of that area of Dublin City. And Dublin, South
Harry Crosby Town.
Harry Crosby Town, exactly. The other thing I think is interesting is there's an article in the I think it's Sunday Independent about bargain hunters eager to snap up cut price mansions, because there's a tax, we're dealing with tax and property again, there's a tax benefit in place at the moment that if you buy one of these large mansions, you have if you hold it for 7 years, you have 0 capital gains tax to pay on it. That's presuming there will be a capital gain on it over the 7-year period, which is quite an assumption to make. But if you buy it and hold it for 7 years, and even if you're an offshore investor, it does make sense to come in, okay, we'll buy this castle or this hotel for €1 million or 2 million, whatever it's costing, and at least we're capital gains tax free if you hold it for 7 years. So you end up having a lot with the biggest whole lot of apartments in Ireland in, say, the early 2000s. People were holding these properties and not selling them because they had to hold them for 7 years to get the capital gains lock-in. So that's up to 31st December this year, so people are coming into the market at the moment. So I think what we're seeing is hot spots in the market, but how sustainable that's going to be, that if we have the increase in supply coming forward in the next 6 to 12 months as the banks start to move, and how much demand is really there other than hot demand.
Right. It's remains a fascinating subject. Like it used to at one stage, as it was always going up, and then it was as it was coming down. I'm going to have to take a break now. With us in studio this morning, Conor Pope, celebrity, Aileen Hickley, Aisling Meehan, Lorcan Roach Kelly, and Matt Cobb.
1850 715 150. Music in high definition from the RT Concert Orchestra this August. Paul Brady, Julie Feeney, Rodgers and Hammerstein at the movies. Alan Harris sings Nat King Cole.